It's always great working with both of you. Great seeing everyone, those of you that stopped by and saw my colleagues at COABE just recently in Phoenix. And it's great to speak to you all virtually again and stay in touch. So a little bit about me and us here. My name is Sean Chakravarti. I'm from the Office of Citizenship, USCIS. And, well, what is that? Other than being, part of the federal government, what specifically do we do and our mission? So our mission is really to professionalize the world of adult citizenship education, work with all the great partners that we have all across the country, and really help adult learners not only pass their citizenship test, of course, itself, but also really integrate and feel a part of this country. So one very important aspect I'm sure all of you adult educators know is digital literacy. So increasingly so in our society, in our American society, we know that digital literacy is a necessary for full participation and integration into our community. So today, I just want to talk about some of the challenges that we face there, but also leave with a lot of the solutions that we can all offer for that as well. All right? So diving in to get us started. Let's start from defining it. So digital literacy, and as we all know, everyone's favorite part, WIOA, right? I'm sure we've heard this now for years coming through, right? So working from WIOA, how does WIOA define digital literacy within? So as you can see here, in WIOA, they're describing it as the skills associated with using technology that enables adult learners to find, evaluate, organize, create, and communicate information, right? Well, what does that mean? As a working definition for us educators, right, it's a pretty broad definition, right? And I find that as a good thing, because that leads us to the I in WIOA. It really allows us to innovate and come up with creative approaches, right? And I've seen creative approaches in classrooms like all across the country. So it's a good thing that we have that flexibility in what we can do and how we can approach digital literacy in our classrooms. Right? All right. So some numbers on the need, right? Again, those of you all of us in the field, we know the need is there, but even as I was researching this, I even found the extent of the need in the United States even surprised me, right? So one is the need from the employer's aspect, or any of the, today's jobs or other things, where they require some sort of digital literacy, most jobs. And you would think jobs such as whether they were, let's say, in the restaurant industry or in other service sector industries, even they require some digital literacy aspects that are there. Whether it's filling out a timesheet or putting the orders in into a system, into a computer. So increasingly so, every aspect, even applying for the job, right? There's so many large employers now where you have to go through an online system to even apply for the job. One of the largest studies that did this was the OECD study, and that's found 26% of U.S. adults cannot use a computer at all. This is like we're thinking very basic computer use with it. And that's a lot. That's 26%, shocking number. And this is just we're not even getting into advanced usage. Okay? For citizenship, to give one example from us in our office, increasingly the process itself is becoming digital, whether we're filling out the forms online to the interview process itself is moving towards a system where iPads are being used with a stylus for not only signatures, but in the future, the system will also use that to record written answers as well. So again, that can create some apprehension in our adult learners, which already citizenship is a very high stakes, interview as it is, or, there with it, right? So in general, given all of these, a lack of that digital literacy or comfort can really prevent someone from becoming, the best student they can be, applying for a job that they would be really good at, it would be a perfect fit, but they just, couldn't apply for the job, and really just being an engaged full citizen in the country, right? So if those of us that are doing it, please continue to incorporate digital literacy into your curricula. And those of us that adult educators that feel hesitant or shy, let's start doing incorporating digital literacy into our classroom. All right. For the full study, the OECD study that I mentioned, and it compares different countries in the OECD. So you have our USA compared to say Japan or Singapore and all the other countries that are there. As you can see here, just to note, the statistics that we have here, if you actually go to the levels, can't use computers is the way they defined it. The link to the whole study is there. But can't use, that means we're not even really turning them on even, or we haven't even got to being able to set up email accounts. The red bar that you see here for the United States that is there, the red bar is very, very little use. I mean, you can turn it on, but you can't really navigate web pages and find information. And then you can see a huge bar is still the yellow bar. That means they use computers, but they use it poorly. So even when some adults in the United States may have computers at home and are using them, as we would say, maybe with their smartphones or using them, they're not using them very well. And they're not harnessing the full technology that they could be using there, right? And the right at the top, the green bar that you see there, that's super high proficient. I mean, I don't think I would fall into. I mean, that's when you get into some coding and some other things. I mean, many of us might not fall into that level 3 category. But really, level 2, that purple band there, that's really shockingly low. That medium level computer use is such a small band in the United States, right? Also, as we talk about digital literacy for our learners, right, I always like to think back about our organizations itself. Where does apprehension to digital literacy come from, right? Some of it comes from how we as educators or directors view digital literacy. We freak out, as a teacher. If I freak out every time there's a new platform, how many times in our work or daily life is there a new online system that rolls out and we all roll our eyes? We're like, oh, we got to learn this new system. And we don't like doing it. So translate that into our organizations and our classrooms. You'll find that sometimes we ourselves as educators, we can be resistant to the change as well, right? And one big area of that for our learners to be comfortable with digital literacy, we ourselves have to take the early adopter approach and show enthusiasm for new products that are out there, right? So one big area that that we've seen is testing, right? In the ESL world and in adult education, there's lots of new forms of tests that are online testing, right? And I know it's a challenge implementing them. I also had challenges when I was a teacher, just before my students even getting comfortable with the system, for me to figure out how to navigate the system. And then one computer would go down and then the internet would phase out. And I'd be like, oh, I hate this. It was so much easier to just try to print out 20 copies of the test and use it in class. But again, as a challenge, I throw out to all of us educators that are there, let's see which versions of the e-test that we can implement and just give it a try and see if it works for you and your learners, right? And I've done this, I've been through this process, and it takes time. The first few times I implemented e-testing, it was almost like there would be riots, but over time I started getting my learners comfortable using tablets and multiple choice answers and getting them comfortable with practice drills with it. And then I myself started playing with the program and the systems. And then I found that actually my data was more accurate, actually. And I had analytics at my fingertips. You know, data, test score gains, and other things that we all know. You know, everyone loves, you know, writing reports and everyone wants to see your gains and other things. Well, I will be honest, when I went to an e-testing model, I had all of these reports at my fingertips and more accurate testing results as well with it, right? So that's one challenge that I can throw out there to everyone. See if you can try to experiment and implement some e-testing in your program. All right. So who are the ones that we might need to identify and target and help if they're the more vulnerable demographic that need assistance in this area? So a Pew Research study highlighted some of these demographics. And again, most of these, I don't think surprise any of us in this digital room here. Older learners, women, lower income households may not have access to broadband and have digital devices at home, and those with lower formal levels of education, right? So if they haven't been in school systems in any country, and then they come here and their first approach to formal education is in our classrooms, it can be harder for them to adopt all of a sudden, you know, aspects of digital literacy with that. Older learners may not be digital natives again, so you have that challenge that are there. Some of the younger learners may have some advantages in the sense that, you know, they have their cell phones now. Kids can be glued to those phones, so that does give them some advantages when it comes to some types of digital literacy. And we'll go into that being like, how do we want to teach it and get the most out of it that are there? So think about and reflect on yourselves too. What level of tech adoption do you have? You know, are you an early adopter of yourself, or how are your learners? Do you use the internet for learning? Right? Do you know where to find trustworthy information online? Right? It's one thing to be able to open up web pages and be on social media, but are we part of what we want to teach is also so they'd be able to analyze content and know where to find trustworthy information and know, and especially so, you know, as we see, we want definitely, with all the information, misinformation out there, we definitely want our learners to be able to find factual and trustworthy information online, and also not be taking advantage of by scams that are out there. Again, in citizenship, many in adult citizenship classes, this group, the unprepared, the vulnerable demographics, get taken advantage of also the most. And what do I mean by being taken advantage of? For example, to put it in concrete examples, different forms, right? Citizenship forms. All of our forms are free and online, right? But these forms, in communities where someone may not know how to access the vulnerable demographics, people take advantage of that. So they'll say, oh, here's $50 and I'll print out the form for you, where they could have just gone online and printed out the N400 application form. Also, without knowing where to find good legal help, they may go again to some scam, people pretending to be lawyers and offering help on the process. So that also, again, this same demographic ends up being the most vulnerable to scams and other false information. So we know the need is great, right? We know the need is great, but now, and we know that we're going to teach it and we're going to implement this in our classrooms, right? But are we just going to bring in a couple of, iPhones and throw in some iPads and let students have at it and be like, oh, well, they're on Facebook, they're using WhatsApp, they're using different apps. That's digital literacy, right? Well, it's a step. I would say it's a step towards the right direction. But just as those of you that are familiar with, say, like Bloom's taxonomy and higher order thinking, we also want our digital instruction to move towards redefinition and the creation of new tasks, right? So the visual of the model here, in the lowest level of the stage, you'd have no technology at all. It would just be simply your classrooms, bare bones, paper-based, nothing. Then you introduce, in the substitution phase, you just introduce some technology with it. But what you do with that technology is nothing new or innovative, in the sense, I'll give you an example. Let's say you give every student a laptop and they copy text. They learn how to type. That's great. That is starting to learn how to type and build those skills. But as simple as, instead of writing a letter, they just type out the letter in Microsoft Word or whichever program that they use that's there, right? So that's substitution. But then you can go down, following down the model, we go to augmentation. And in augmentation, let's say you take that what they typed out, a letter, and you email it out as a mass email. So that's a functional improvement, because instead of mailing, 20 letters, you can send out a mass email in one go without copying 20 times. So that's one step further down the line. But then what can we do as teachers to really show learners the benefits of digital literacy? Then we start getting into modification. And that could be, for example, showing in an email chain the letters back and forth and the responses, right? So now we're doing something different. We're like, oh, you can track conversations this way, right? And then the ultimate goal is redefinition, or creating a new task that wasn't even possible without the digital aspects of it. For example, let's say in an email that we're sending someone a letter, let's say we included a poll at the bottom, right? So we added a little poll everywhere at the bottom of your email. Now that's a completely new way, and something new, completely different, that we wouldn't be able to do previously before in just a paper-based way. And it captures all the poll data, and you have your conversations tracked like that, right? So ideal in the classrooms, we don't want to just buy a bunch of iPads and throw them in. We want to be very intentional, and we want to have our learners really get comfortable with that technology and create and see really what's possible with the technology that is there, right? Not just, I mean, it's useful, not just downloading forms and other things, but really what can they create using this technology that makes their lives better. Okay. I'll give you an example from my citizenship classes that we started doing. For those of you familiar with this, I'm sure many already are using this for either work or in classrooms. Google Docs. Google Docs they're free, they're available to use. You can use different other word processing software. I used Google Docs in my class for my adult citizenship students. So a simple example as we go down this model, in the lowest level, I would just have students just get familiar and typing civics questions, the 100 civics questions for citizenship. They would just type them. That would get them familiar with it. They would type the question, they would type the answer. So it was a form of just memorizing. Instead of taking notes on paper, they could type them up. And I would print them out afterwards, and they could keep a copy of that. Then afterwards, when they got more comfortable with Google Docs and sharing everything in the cloud, I would move to the next stage, augmentation. And there I would have learners share that Google Doc they created with everyone in the class and teachers with that. So everyone wrote some of the questions, and I would also be the document would be shared with me as well. After that, using track changes, right? In the modification stage, using track changes and the comment feature on the side of the plus button, I would teach them how to edit. They could edit for spelling errors, grammar errors, make sure they copy the question correctly, because the first time the adjudicator may ask that question exactly the way it's written, they're going to ask it. So making sure that they're prepared for those questions the way it's going to be asked the first time with it. And so students would then be able to, in the cloud at the same time, virtually correct each other's work. Then, in the final stage, the redefinition, something that would not be possible in the pen and paper world would be you can use Google Forms, which is also, it's all in the drive that's in there in Google Suite. You can use Google Forms to create a quiz with the same 100 civics questions, or really any topic you want. This was in a citizenship class, so we're using that. And they can create that quiz, and you have your students create it, right? As a teacher, I give some input, but I'm really facilitating, and the students are really creating the quiz, sharing it, and it's being graded virtually as well. And we did all this in the classroom, so I'm in the room facilitating, but the students are really leading the activity that's going on there with it. So this, you can see an example here of the same product, any products, apps or products that you're using, for example, Google Docs, can be used in a better way or in a more sophisticated way to really foster that higher order thinking and higher order digital use that is there. Over my time teaching, as I tried to think about some useful links for everyone, I realized as I type this, there are already newer versions that are out there. and that is the amazing thing about digital literacy. As as we speak, new products are coming. And in short, the best way to find these products and know are other educators that are there. I may have some ideas, but honestly, I've learned more from all of you in the field. As I go out and talk with all of you, you guys show me what's in the classrooms, and I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. I didn't know about that, or just came from the conference, and there's all this great speech recognition ESL software that's out there that can help correct pronunciation and other things. And I've never used them in the classroom, but that sounds like some pretty cool stuff to bring into the classroom, right? These are just some of the ones that I've used with it. If you want a baseline to be able to just to see where your students are at in the digital literacy world, the first link, the North Star Basic Computer Skills Assessment, just gives you the basic one. Like, can they use a mouse? Can they navigate a web page? Can they open and close things, turn on a computer? That gives you a baseline with it, right? And then, of course, you can check at the end of your term and see where they are afterwards and see which skills that they've gained and which ones they can need to acquire more. In the citizenship world, in partnership with USA Learns, we have online citizenship course with all of our citizenship modules that are there. It covers the civics content and ESL content, and of course the N400 speaking part. So that's something that teachers are using to create some blended learning environments, and also their students can work from home with that as well, or they can do it in class as well. They can use it if students are on the wait list. So different ways they can use the same product that are there. I mentioned the Google world in education that is there. There's lots of great products that are there, from the Google Docs itself, but as I mentioned, forms and different ways to create quizzes, or, even for teachers, for us just to keep our attendance and other things online. If you want to get into some of the theory and some of the behind it, or just data and statistics, links, again, all of you are probably familiar with links already in the adult education world, has lots of articles and all on integrating digital literacy that is there. This is Read Theory, the next one, is great. Also, I found it doesn't have ads in it, so your learners aren't clicking around different ways. Read Theory, again, helps your learners read. It's tied to the Common Core. It's useful in ESL classrooms. It's also useful in adult ed, GED classrooms as well, all throughout. Just a really way to give targeted, lots of nonfiction articles, lots of informative texts that are there, really aligned to the Common Core. So my students really like Read Theory as well. And it's at all levels. I've used it at all literacy levels that are there. Bringing digital literacy, not only just reading, the National Archives is a great way to bring authentic historical documents alive to their Docs Teach that's there. And they really break down primary sources and authentic documents and bring them alive for the classroom. That's another great online resource that I've used. Many ESL apps are also there, such as Duolingo and other such apps that are also there. And again, as I wrote down Duolingo, I've seen there's plenty more that are out there in the market also. Right? So think back and think, as I said, you guys are usually the best resource for what's out there in the digital literacy world. So I always take a point, ask your fellow educators, and see what they're using in their classrooms, what's working, what's not working for them and for your learners that are there. You can also, I'll put my email up there. You can also email me anytime as well when if you like to brainstorm ideas or have any questions with it, or just feel free to shoot me any suggestions that are there as well with it. And I know there's also challenges as well that are there, right? In implementing digital literacy for everyone. So part of it is so if everyone would like, in the chat function, if you'd like, I want to like open this up to everyone as well again. So let's start off with, what are some of the things that you use in your classroom, digital literacy, that you like? Now I know Ms. Sandra Leaks is pointed to GCFL Learning, learnfree.org. Yep, I've used that one. That's a good one where you can teach digital literacy, math, and English is all there, and that's free. The G Drive, I know Carmen's mentioned the G Drive. We have a question here from Brian. Does USCIS have a digital app? Yes, we do. We do have a app that can help you practice your civics question, the 100 questions. If you go to a Google Play Store or the Apple Store, they have our app. There's lots of other apps I want. So you have to dig through and find the one with the torch, would be the recommendation I would give you to find our USCIS civics practice question app. Find the one with the torch. I would recommend using our app just because we know it stays up to date. I mean, I'm sure there are great other apps out there. It's just that many of them, they don't keep them up to date, and they also don't phrase the question maybe exactly. They might change a word around. So it's just might be easier to use our app. So look for the torch with that. Ooh, this is a great suggestion from Kelly as well. Voice memo for students. There to record their tutor reading in English. Yep, that's a great way to have students. I've had students record themselves. We have a teachers using that. Yeah. Let me check. The USA Learn US Citizenship app that I have is available. It's not an app, but you can access their website and do it through their smartphone. Yep, Nearpod, Burlington English. We know Burlington English is a great course for all ESL teachers that are out there. Nearpod is, I've used great lesson plans that are there for you. USA Learn. Ooh, Khan Academy. Yep, that's a goodie right there too. Yep, I've used that for all GED instruction. Pumarosa is a suggestion by Miss Dolores. I'll be honest, I don't know Pumarosa myself. So yeah, I'm learning that as well with that. Kahoot is a great way to quiz students. A correction by Miss Jessie, yes. She uses read theory as well in our classroom, but says that students should have some basic reading skills. You're right, yeah. It's probably better with some reading skills than if they're pre-literate, correct, yeah. I have teachers here using audio files, Google Voice to set up a telephone number. There's another one, Starfall, Learnzillion. I have not used either one of those two. Right? For all of the links that are here, that the PowerPoint, we'll send that out, and my PowerPoints, I embedded the links there. But don't worry, if there's anything here that we're missing, I will download the chat, and I will email all of these links out. So don't worry, you don't have to scramble and try to write all of these out by pen and paper. I have someone who seconded Learnzillion with lots of great lesson plans, they say. And also Robert has mentioned there too. Burlington English has citizenship components there as well. Those of you that have it, and yes, interviews and role plays there are going to be huge for getting your students at ease with the whole process, and then having the role plays done out in class. That is a huge part of passing your citizenship test, because I know we prepare our students and they know everything, but obviously if they're nervous, right? So those role plays and the interview components are a great way to put our students at ease. Yep, Smithsonian, Ben's Guide. Oh, you guys are throwing some great stuff in there. Ooh, Miss Carrie has a great one here, Remind. And this is for teachers. So this is like digital literacy for teachers, using Remind to send your classes messages and get messages from your students so they can practice texting you. But you also, that increases your retention. That's great. Let me see here. I'm scrolling down to see. Quizlet. Okay, I think I've covered. So we have some that using Quizlet, ReadWorks. Yeah, ReadWorks is like as well. Let me throw out another challenge to all of you. Okay, so we have a lot of great resources, right? Okay, and we're going to that, like I said in the chat, we already have a lot of great resources. Let me throw out a challenge to everyone. You guys chat and tell me, what are some of the challenges you face, your learners face, right? Our adult learners face really getting devices and having internet access. So for those of you that subscribe to the COABE Journal, I believe the one, it came out last year, 2017. There's a great one on technology access and adult learning one. And let me see, do I have it in my office? The COABE Journal that's here for this one. Anyway, you can look it up, but those of you that have it, or I'll just tell you some of the findings that are there. So one of the biggest things is we're incorporating digital literacy in our classrooms, but our learners don't have internet at home. And they're like, okay, we're doing all this, and then they don't have internet at home, right? So that is, as we know, we adult educators are super persons, men and women that do everything. So that's also another factor to think about is, let me throw out there, how do you help your learners overcome those challenges of bringing the devices to your classroom or finding internet access? And you guys can just chat in there and give everyone ideas on how you overcome those barriers.
Hi, Sean. This is Sharon.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to do a little quick check-in here to see if we had time while we're waiting for folks to respond for Robert to say a few words and share his screen.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Okay, great. Are we near the end of your presentation, Sean?
Oh, yes. Now I'm just throwing it out to the crowd. Yes. So feel free, Robert can switch the screen over to Robert.
Okay, so you're going to need to stop sharing your. Okay, great. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And yes, I want to say, Sean, this is great. I remember having so many of my students when I was teaching ESL participate in the citizenship, and so thanks for all you do. We've been so thrilled in Burlington English to incorporate so many things that we've heard from educators nationwide. And I remember whenever we try new initiatives, we would usually struggle, not because we were underwhelmed, but because we were overwhelmed and we were running to 5 or 10 different books and 20 different websites. So what we've done in Burlington is provide you in a comprehensive core the elements that students would need, and not just in a drill and kill kind of way, but in a really, really valuable way for learners to, incorporate all the 100 questions, again, in context. I mean, really, really engaging. If you're out there and you haven't seen our speech our accent modification. It is the best. Students love it. And think of all the words that they'll feel so much more comfortable, actually going into that citizenship, that actual interview process. And that's where I'll wrap it up here and turn it back over to Sean. Is that really comes down to it. I remember being a teacher and having students, when they explained to me the process, and so oftentimes they had gotten the questions, the 100 questions at the time and what have you, but it came down to that psycho-emotional and going into that situation in a government building and what have you. And so we really prep them, give them a ton of opportunities for true role play and getting over that anxiety, getting really comfortable with the words and pronunciation, and then again putting them in really great situations where they can practice long before they actually have to go into that what must be a very stressful situation, even though you have phenomenal people like Sean and Michael Jones and all those great folks out there working the work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sean and to Sharon.
Great, thank you. And Robert, we really appreciate that, and appreciate all the support that Burlington English has written into the products to support our students. I wanted to take one quick moment before I turn this back to Sean to remind everybody that right now we have, this might seem like a little tangential, but it's not. As we all think about adult education and helping our students, helping ESL students, helping ABE students, we know that there's a Dear Colleague letter that's on the Senate floor right now. And it's really important that we all just take a minute while we can to think about that. And I would like to direct our attention to the Educate and Elevate National Public Awareness Campaign. If we go to educateandelevate.org, you can see that this tool right here, this website, has a tool on it where you can not only become an adult learner member if you wanted to, you can view our Success Files with Rob Lowe video, which was just recently released to 148 million viewers. But as well, you can take action. And all that means is you're raising awareness with your legislator about the value of adult education, nothing more than that. You can come in here and you can send an email to them. You can let them know that adult education is really important. And when I click here, when I click submit, you can see all of the people that this is going to: President Trump, Vice President Pence, my senators, my representatives, all these people. And I put my subject line in here and I click submit and it goes to them. So today is the deadline for all of us to rally around investing in adult education, rallying for our students, the adult learners. So before I turn this back over to Sean, I just wanted to mention, do your part as an adult educator. Get online, take a few minutes to contact your legislators and let them know that adult education is important. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Sean. Last few words.
Yeah, and again, I wanted to thank everyone who took the time today, especially everyone hosting me today to reach all of you. And thank you really for all that you do in adult education. I really, it's an honor to speak to all of you and to really, I know challenges get thrown at you constantly with it. And I know that digital literacy may be just one small aspect of all the things that get thrown at you. But as you see, we've got a community of people helping here and great resources also. So the answers are in this chat room. They're in here. We have the answers. So thank you all. Yeah.
Did you have any last words, Sean, or do you feel like, do you want to check in the Q&A and see if there's questions that need to be answered?
Yes, I will go through the Q&A and I will get to everyone, right? I'll be able to download the Q&A, so I'll be able to get to everyone through that way, right? And of course, anyone can email me as well. If I miss out a question or miss you in the scroll through there, please email me. I can send you links to things mentioned in the chat, where we can just brainstorm ideas together. So
Sean, I have a question here. Does USCIS provide referrals for citizenship students who would like legal help completing their N400 application for citizenship?
On our website, we have places where there can be places where they can partner to provide legal help from some trusted providers. So website, you can go by your state and see who those some trusted legal providers are. In general, I would say find those low bono or pro bono legal help providers in your community and make that partnership with them. That's the best thing to do as a teacher, because I can tell you as a teacher, you want to try to help them and give them advice, but don't. These are complicated legal, that is, the N400 is a legal form. So one of the best things you can do is make that partnership in your community.
Okay. We have another question here. How much success has been found using the government D of state programs, including the online program?
The D of state, which program? Or
that's what it says on here. How much success has been found using the government D of state programs, including the online programs?
I apologize. I'm not sure which program they're referring to with that.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, which program that is for. I know that so again, I'll speak just to citizenship. Our forms, you can download them online, and we're moving in the citizenship interview to a more digital platform where there's iPads where the applicant, signs the name and does those things. That is the only program that I know of personally.
Okay, great. Well, Sean, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn this back to Robert for the last words here as our sponsor, and on our behalf from COABE, thank you, everybody. And Robert, go ahead.
Yes, again, fantastic job. Hey, one of my favorite sites right on Sean's website right there, the USCIS Help in Your Community, if you Google that, has some wonderful things. In fact, I even got this from one of Sean's handout about a year ago or so. So really found this to be fantastic. But again, to everyone, I'll look forward to seeing you at www.burlingtonenglish.com. And with that, back over to Sharon and Sean. And again, fantastic job helping our newcomers. Appreciate it. All your great work.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. And thank you, Robert. And thank you to all of our attendees.
Pleasure.
Okay. Bye now.